WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good,
Others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right
that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Thank you, Lawrence. And
that was my fault. I hit the wrong button.
A little malfunction there.
I owe you an apology, Greg. They all asked me, not my mother asked me where you were last week. I think he's had a day off, personal day. You had major surgery, and when you came in this morning, I was like, oh my God, because I just saw Fred Horowitz with the same sling on a couple of days ago, and I thought right away it was your rotator cuff. But I'm glad to see you're okay, and.
Yeah, things turned out fine, and I was certain that you were in the room here 2 weeks ago.
I probably heard it
when I said I'm definitely not going to be here next Wednesday. I did hear
that part.
I may or may not be here the following Wednesday, but
well, good.
Hopefully everything
okay.
Appears went well, and I'm feeling fine. I'm getting to the point now. I'm going on a week, and I'm going a little stir crazy. So.
I bet. Now, was this something that you did? Like, did you pop it, or has it been over? Did it build up over time? Like your shoulder was getting?
Yeah,
worse,
this is from a little mishap back in December.
Okay.
First real heavy snowstorm.
So you were sitting. Oh, yeah, that first one we got, that 22-incher. So you've been sitting around with pain since then, waiting to get operated on?
Well, unfortunately, and I'm not going to start mentioning names of facilities or whatever. Didn't feel that there was any kind of a tear or anything of that nature, and that it was severely bruised on the interior. Anyways, long story short,
you got the operator. No, they did the same thing with my mother in her hip. They go get another, do this, do that. She's like, I can't walk. I'm in pain. Finally, thank God, by the grace of God, she went to an orthopedic specialist. They took a X-ray or whatever, and they said I can fix that in 30 minutes. But she went to her regular doctor telling her, come back in a month. Like, she's like, I can't. I'm hurting here. Like, I could see her, like, she was struggling. I'm like, my mom used to be really, active when she was younger. Played tennis a lot, 3 or 4 days a week. She was ran. She's on the treadmill all the time, and that was bothering her that she couldn't exercise like she used to. And I tell you, once she got the that little, it was just a little procedure. She didn't get the the little thing that they go half an hour, Dr. Lombardo, in and out. So
yeah. Oh, it wasn't a full.
It wasn't the full on one where you have to say, a friend of mine, Liam, got that, and he was off his feet for 2-3 weeks.
I'm glad I came in. Is Fred coming in today?
Yeah, he was. He was here last week too. He did good. Me and him did it by ourselves, but then Joe came in, early. So then the three of us did it, and then the rest of the.
Well, I started out watching you from my phone, and then of course we had to go to Albany, and
Of course, obviously I wasn't driving. Jen was driving. And could hear you on FM. It was well north of Catskill.
That's good.
So probably just south of Coxsackie.
That's good. Now, did you when you lost the FM, did you happen to just switch over to 920 to see if it would make it, or by then you were already...
I didn't. But the 920, even in Sorgeties, is...
I know. It's the tower site needs a little help. I think it's just old. You know, my grandfather put that tower back up in the 60s.
Now, where is that tower?
Right behind Wooden Wheel, kind of. But there used to be 3 of them. Now there's only one.
Remember
you were here when we were about to do the deal with Robin Hood Radio, right? Were you here then? They were going to sell. Robin Hood was going to be our new Pamel. Morning, Fred. And that deal kind of went south. I don't know how. I wasn't here then, or I wasn't working at the radio station then. The deal was that Robin Hood Radio would take over as our parent company, or the ones that we pay our rent to. I guess right at the 11th hour, I don't know what happened. They decided to back out, but why Robin Hood? It was going on for like a year. They took down 2 of the towers because they weren't, they were just so old. So now we have 1 tower, but we have my family, my mom has towers across the street on Snake Hill, which is like across from Wooden Wheel up on the mountain. So what I think my dad did with the Pamel guy is he put an antenna on our tower, which is really high up. It shoots it down, the FM signal shoots down to the AM site, and then it goes out to everyone. So that's why it's a lot clearer on FM. And also, FM is a lot clearer than AM.
Yeah, and wasn't there many, many years... First of all, good morning, Fred Costello.
Hey, Good morning, folks. How we doing?
We're doing good to see you.
Good.
Wasn't there at one time, and I'm going years back now, a tower, which, I don't remember, but I was told, wasn't there one in Mount Marion?
Probably because GHQ actually started in Saugerties, above someone's garage, I believe. That was in the late 50s, but they didn't stay there that long, a couple of years maybe.
That was GHQ?
I think it was where Tom Sutton's building
Right by the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
It might be. All right, so then it wasn't even as far up as Saugerties.
No, that would be Saugerties.
Mount Marion?
Yeah.
Well, Mount Marion's a hamlet.
I got all that stuff somewhere.
I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong.
No,
and if one of our listeners,
we didn't go to John Street. I think my mom said like 66 or whatever year we started the Happy Christmas Fund. So maybe that was 66 or 67. The same year we started the Happy Christmas Fund was the same year we went to John Street. Harry started it.
Gotcha.
So he was still in good health then.
So maybe one of our listeners, if they're aware. I know one person that would probably know is Jimmy Gage. 331-9255 is our call-in number. We'd love to hear from you on this Wednesday morning.
Good morning. How we doing?
We are doing.
It's a nice Wednesday morning, too.
Yes, it is.
Really nice.
It is a little
chilly.
Nip in the air, but hey, it's not raining.
No, it's not raining. We're doing good.
Even though we are below the water table, though, still quite. I was on... Dan's filling in for me tomorrow, and Friday I'm going to go to Lake George and fish with a few of my friends, catch the trout before they go back under. And I was noticing on the water table, even though we did get some rain, we're still really below. We're supposed to get an inch a week. Yeah, we're really below our water table. So even with all that snow we had, we're still below the thing. It's on the back of the Freeman where the tides are, wherever the weather is.
Where we fall for the water.
Yeah, where we're at. I think it's right on that thing right there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I didn't know that until yesterday. Cam's like, yeah, you can find out. It'll tell you where we're supposed to be at. I know when I was climbing the hill to go to the towers the other day, the stream running down the mountain was gushing. So my father used to say, if that stream's gushing, we're good with water. But apparently, and I know
you may be right, though. New York as a whole, kind of in the center part, in the western part of the state, is really struggling with water right now. And we're below average, but we're not in.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not that bad. But I know the Ashokan is pretty low. The reservoir is pretty low. I mean, where they'd like to be.
Yeah,
they're pretty.
They're actually spilling right now because.
What are they letting the Gilboa out to come down? Is that
no, they're spilling over the spillway.
Oh, they are?
Yep. They're not using the waste channel. They're letting the water go over the top of the spillway dam. Yeah.
But can't they adjust the Ashokan reservoir by the Gilboa reservoir? Isn't that when that gets too low, then they let the Gilboa out. That comes into the Esopus Creek.
Yep.
The creek goes
as a supplemental. Yeah, because there's the portal.
That's how it gets all muddy sometimes, right? Sometimes you look
generally
at the
mud
and it
comes
looks like it's a pile of mud.
Yeah.
It's just
they generally the mud comes from the heavy rains.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of hoping for a better result. But they have that system's incredibly capable of selecting water from a number of different ways. And in addition to that, they can they can get water out of it 3 ways. They can let it go over the spillway, which they're doing now. They can, and using the aqueduct, which brings water to New York City. And then they have the diversion channel. And oftentimes when they use a diversion channel, that's when the muddiest water is coming, because they'll take water from the West Basin, which is the kind of the sediment area, and dump that straight into the Esopus Creek. So that water, because it's more highly turbid than the water in the East Basin, which is slated more likely to go to New York City for drinking, that's when we get those muddy, turbid releases. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate because, boy, I tell you, when you cross that bridge and you see those muddy waters, yeah,
it sinks your soul a little bit. Yeah. But for folks that are listening and are concerned, there's an opportunity to participate in the DEC public hearing on this matter. The DEP dumps that water through the diversion channel under a protocol for release, and that speedies permit and the generic environmental impact statement that accompanies it is under review. So this is our opportunity to express our concerns, and it's very, very easy to do so. The Freeman actually set up a link. So if you go to the Freeman site, you'll find the link so that you can express your concern. And me and other community leaders have spent the better part of the last few weeks trying to motivate people to participate in this. And we're hopeful that we know that they understand our concern because of the dialogue that we've been having. We're hopeful that some of the solutions that are out there are employed under the new protocol, and that's finalized later this summer, and that we could mitigate some of those releases. There are better options, and they've been good partners with regard to flood releases and helping us manage and insulate from flooding, and we don't have to give that up to get better water. We can do both. So please participate in that. There's a lot of great information out there. And right now there's a fairly large group of folks and community leaders. I know the city of Kingston has been a very vocal supporter. Saugerties has been on board. The village of Saugerties has been on board. River Keeper, Mountain Keeper. There's some really heavy duty people participating in this now. So hopefully we're going to get a positive outcome. Senator Hinchy's been on board. We're getting a lot of positive support and attention from stakeholders that live on the lower Esopus. So, and there's a disparity between how the communities in the lower Esopus and the upper Esopus are treated. The upper Esopus communities are part of the New York City watershed, so obviously their groundwater health is critical to the Shokan Reservoir's ability to provide potable water. But once that water goes over the dam, those concerns kind of leave the concerns of the DEP, and philosophically that's not consistent with who they are. They advocate for best practices, and they're kind of recognized across the globe as being kind of the trendsetter in those best practices, and they somewhat ignore that once it goes over the spillway, and that's not necessarily, it's not fair. It's not fair to us in Saugerties or the other communities that are in the lower Esopus. And out of this process, it is becoming increasingly clear that there's a strong belief that Hudson River communities that get their water from there, they call themselves the G7, they are claiming an impact by the turbidity because there's so much of it that when it gets into the Hudson River, it doesn't settle out quite yet, and towns like Esopus and Rhinebeck and Poughkeepsie's filtration plants are being overwhelmed by the turbidity. So their cost for maintenance and their ability to provide clean drinking water to their residents appears to be compromised. So there's a lot at stake here. It's a big issue, and it would be helpful as residents for anyone who's listening or concerned to go online and make your voice heard. Didn't expect to go.
Now's the time to do it.
Now is definitely the time to do it.
And how long is that open for?
It's going to close in June, so we're down to weeks here. And now keeping it open was an effort. I think the original plan was going to close in April. The first public hearing was in March, and then they left it open till a point in April, and then out of an abundance of people wanting to express themselves, they and their urging of the county executive, they left it open till June. And once it's closed, it's closed.
Right.
So, we can complain about it, but it won't carry the same weight. And Executive Ryan and his team and the county legislature, they've all been largely on board as well. So we have a good portfolio of stakeholders that are sharing the concern, who have taken the time to really understand the issue. And I think we're going to find ourselves in a better place in the near future. Fingers are crossed on that.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully. So, I don't know if you caught yesterday where CDC had come out and stated that the reason for the mask wearing outdoors is because the transmission, there's 10% probability of transmission in the outdoors. I think that was a couple days ago. So it was just yesterday, the New York Times published an article that he's got a unusual last name, at either St. Andrews or Andrews Medical University. I think it's out on the West Coast, and maybe I botched that also. Stated that the percentage of transmission outdoors is less than 1%. It's actually 0.06. So shortly after that article came out, the New York Times, the CDC corrected themselves and confirmed that what the New York Times had stated and that doctor had stated was indeed true.
That it's less than 1% outdoors?
It's less than 1%, and that there is not a documented case of a transmission outdoors, which
Really?
I just thought was the strangest, craziest thing.
That is bizarre.
I mean, as we go along now and we start to slowly come out of this, some of the contradictory stuff, and of course, a lot of the stuff is a result of the scientists and the researchers doing further research, doing further development enhancements, and then as a result, there's new guidance. So it's really not contradicting. But to have the CDC come out and say it's 10%, and then this well-known doctor at this university disputing it, the Times running it, and then the CDC saying, yeah, we were wrong, you're right.
That's unfortunate because there's a growing population of people who are skeptical, and things like this will feed into that.
I know. That's what bothers me because, just as, hopefully with the, are they expecting today Pfizer will get the okay to start vaccinating, 5 to 12?
It's soon. I don't know if it's today, but yes, coming really close.
So, when you hear that, when you hear full approval from the emergency approval that they were granted a couple of months ago, that would, I hope, instill more confidence in individuals to get vaccinated. But then when you see something like this that the Times ran yesterday, now people
it's
are
unsettling.
Now people are going to say, hey, now come on, what's...
Yeah, it's unsettling because you're making decisions on what we believe to be facts today, and then we find out tomorrow that they're a little bit different. That gives people pause. I understand it, but I still think
everybody still should get
we
vaccinated.
need to get there.
I mean, that's the only way that we're going to completely eradicate this.
Yep.
If we don't, we're going to be dealing with this.
We're going to hang on to it for a long time.
We're going to be dealing with it.
I think there's some acceptance that because the rate of vaccination in the United States has definitely plateaued and is going down at this point, and we're nowhere near 70%. So we're not going to hit that critical mass of vaccination. And when you look at what's happening across the globe, there's resistance and there's lack of vaccine in many parts of the world. And one thing that is abundantly clear after what we just went through for the past 14 months is that these viruses don't respect national boundaries.
No.
Even with all the restrictions that are in place now, the virus still spread across the entire globe. There's, it's hit every continent. And, the variant somewhere across this world is going to come out, and it's going to come back, and we're going to be suffering. Hopefully not, but the probabilities for that are strong.
I think what's, again, is going to have to happen is, and whether there's initiative, whether it gets challenges in court, especially for large venue gatherings where there has to be a mandate.
For passports?
In order to get in, you need to be vaccinated. You need to show proof of vaccination. I know right now the stadiums in the metropolitan area are doing that, either a proof of vaccination or a recent, within 5 days, a negative COVID test. And I think, I know there's restaurants and bars in some of the larger cities across the United States that have implemented that policy.
Well, I mean, depending on your clientele, some places have a diverse clientele where you have folks that are skeptical and are not going to get vaccinated, and then you have other folks that are just coming out for the first time, and it's difficult to balance those two perspectives in one building. And I think depending on the neighborhood you live in, perhaps, or the clientele that you serve, it might be in your interest to say, we're only going to allow vaccinated people in.
Right.
That I can see scenarios in pockets of neighborhoods where that would be the only way for businesses to successfully move forward.
Now, if the Islanders, and I don't know if they've
the Islanders are going to be in the Stanley Cup, huh?
In the playoffs, yeah.
Okay.
So they're going to have a section of where vaccinated people can all
sit together.
All sit together. Every other seat. So basically, what is the width of a seat? 3 feet.
Yep.
Of spacing, and I think you're going to see as time goes on, that is going to be the trend, especially if as we go through the coming months, if there is an uptick in the number of positive cases from those not vaccinated. And if I was on the fence about, myself personally, on the fence about getting vaccinated versus not getting vaccinated, it'd have to be in the back of my mind if I chose not to get vaccinated and then got COVID and got seriously sick.
Yeah, because you could have done something about it.
You could have done exactly. You could have done something about it. So I don't understand. And unfortunately, I have some friends of mine, I know you do also, that I've gotten into disputes and disagreements with.
Yeah, me too. And did you pay for your season tickets yet for Giants?
Well, I do the monthly.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, they do an auto pay.
So the letter came out, and it was again reiterated in the Post. The MetLife wants to be at 100. They're at 50% capacity right now. They want to be at 100 by September, and what they're floating is you can't come in unless you're vaccinated. We're not going to segregate you like the Yankees are doing. I know it's still early in the vaccine, stages right now, so it's different for baseball. But by September, that's the end of the summer. You should be ready to go. September 12th is the home opener.
Right.
And they want everybody to, you got to have your card or your, that barcode you have on your phone, and that's how you get in. Just like when I got off the plane last week, a week ago Monday, I had my card in my pocket, but I downloaded the thing like you got. So I had the barcode in one hand, boarding pass in the other, and when I got off at Albany, they wanted me to fill out the health form. I ripped out my thing. TSA scanned it, and now I'm in the system as being vaccinated.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, really?
Just in case I forget it next time.
Yeah. So that's convenient, though.
It is. It's really convenient. Now, they were doing that in Albany. I'm not, I'm sure if they do that at Newburgh, or I'm sure they do it at JFK and LaGuardia, but yeah. And then I said, what's that for? You're in the system now as being vaccinated with, I had Johnson & Johnson. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I actually, my card was in my luggage, so I would have to, undo it. But I remembered about the barcode, and that's great. I mean, now they know that I've been a shot. Now, from what my doctor was telling me on Monday, Stanberg, who's on Medical Monday, we might be getting a booster every year just to enhance it and make it good, just like the influenza shot.
Yeah, just like the flu shot.
Just like the flu shot, right?
Yeah.
Real quick, you'll do it in your doctor's office. You won't have to get online, or you'll go in and ask you want a flu shot, you want a COVID shot, yeah.
Just like you get your flu shot every year.
Every year, yep. Every September I get it, or right around in the fall or whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right, good.
I get it generally too. My physical usually falls that time of year, so they.
The flu is nothing to mess around with. I mean, prior to even us knowing about COVID-19 or any of the other COVIDs, influenza was killing like
50,000 people. Plus a year.
Yeah, almost 100,000. A lot of people every year. You don't get the shot. I mean, if you know anybody with the flu, I mean, you're
shot.
You're shot. You're
4
sore.
or 5 days where
you're constantly sick. You got headaches. You're coughing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on my. Not that I have any enemies. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
No, it's the truth. And it's weird too when you get those. Every injury your body's ever had, a cavity, a broken toe, whatever it was, hurts like it happened 10 minutes before.
Well, let me ask you this. It was only for about 6-7 hours, but after you got, did you get your second shot?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's right. We were talking about this. Was your body really sore?
Oh my God! Yeah.
Horrible. My arm wasn't sore until later on, and the headache was really bad. But for like 4 or 5 hours, I was like, oh.
Yep.
But I think that's the vaccine.
It's the
working,
immune
doing
response.
its job.
Yeah, that's what they state. Yeah, I was fortunate because my arm wasn't even sore.
Yeah, my mother said she didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
Tony Marmo the same way. A lot of people just didn't feel anything. And my mother, I think, got Moderna. Now, Fran DiPetrillo, who's one of the co-hosts on Friday, Rotating Friday, she's on with Rick Remsnyder, she had Pfizer, and her second shot, she was messed up for a couple of days. Not really, but she wasn't feeling well. Mm-hmm. The aches, the pains, had the chills 1 minute, sweat in the next.
Yep. Yeah, I've had, several. In fact, an individual that works for me experienced the same thing. 1 minute, cold, chills, next minute, sweating.
Right.
And it lasted about 24 hours.
Yeah, mine lasted about, I woke up at 2 in the morning, like dripping wet, and by noon, everything was over. And then a day or two after that, so I got the shot on Monday, then the headache started really hurting on Thursday and Friday. And that lasted almost a week. I mean, I was taking a lot of extra strength Tylenol during the day because it was like just a splitting headache. But all good now.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Yeah.
I think with the younger people, like with my mother, she took it, she didn't feel any side effects. I think our bodies, for younger people, I think it's trying to fight off the virus, too.
I agree.
That's what someone else told me. Like,
you get those strong immune responses.
That's right. You have a stronger immune system, so who knows?
Well, I don't know. I feel there's a comfort in being vaccinated. Kind of, you go into a situation, I hear someone sneeze, I don't cringe.
Right.
Just kind of,
right.
We're.
And that's the thing, and that's the whole key of getting students back to school in September, 100%. And just like before, pre-pandemic, kids are going to cough, kids are going to sneeze, kids are kids, younger kids, they're not going to cover their mouth, they're not going to look away. But this is something that's normal in one's life. You get a common cold in wintertime. There's people who get summer colds, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Having that extra protection of being vaccinated, I think just means so much. And
I agree.
Again, why I don't understand why individuals feel the way they do and the excuses that they make. And like I said, I've had these disagreements with a number of people, including one on Saturday night in your establishment.
Jeez. Yeah, I remember. I caught a little bit of that conversation, but you're not going to convince him.
No, there's some that you're just not going to
do it.
Not going to convince.
No.
Yeah, I have a few friends in Florida. I call them trumpeteers because they still think they're still trying to go over the ballots and they won't get the shot. I'm like, Trump got a shot before we left office. He got it like a week. He's the one that started the Operation Warp Speed. But I don't know what their theory is on that. Oh no. He told me that after I told him and I've known this guy since high school. He told me, I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he told me I'm a guinea pig for the FDA. I said, well, I feel better now when I'm walking around. You know, I don't. If I see someone coming down the sidewalk, I don't go.
Run the other way.
I don't move anymore. I noticed that less people are still wearing masks, even though Fauci said that we don't need to wear them in public, as long as we're not, I forget what the deal was.
I think you're going to see CDC come out with some revised, especially after that New York Times article, and CDC admitting that they were wrong and the Times was right, and that that doctor and I can't, some of them I just can't pronounce their last names or even remember
crazy names.
Pronounce their last name.
Are you guys ready to go to a break?
Yeah, we're at the bottom of the hour. Listeners, we'll be back in a few.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
100 years ago, there were 100,000 tigers in the wild. Today, there are as few as 3,200. The Earth's wild animals can't speak up when they need help, but we can. Be the voice for those who have no voice. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Central Hudson reminds you, when it comes to your home's wiring, safety matters. Overheated electric cords or outlets are signs of inadequate wiring, within your wall, in an appliance, or both. Circuit breakers or fuses that trip often is usually a sign that a circuit is overloaded, an appliance is faulty, or something is wrong that can shock a person or cause a fire. Have a trained electrician troubleshoot such problems immediately.
Screening exams for breast, lung, or colorectal cancers are necessary to detect and treat disease at its earliest, most curable stage. But you may have some concerns and questions. Answer your questions and ease your fears by visiting radiologyinfo.org. In addition to information on screening and wellness, you'll find more than 200 descriptions of radiologic exams, procedures, and treatments to help you prepare. Get informed and be prepared. Visit radiologyinfo.org, produced by the Radiological Society of North America and the American College of Radiology.
As the world faces the challenges of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lions recognize that kindness matters now more than ever. And Lions and Leos are finding ways to continue to serve our communities, including ordering food delivery for healthcare workers, holding story time for children online, and providing surgical masks to medical professionals and first responders. Empowering us to do more, Lions Clubs International Foundation has provided nearly $2.5 million in grant funding for COVID-19 relief. And that support continues to grow. For more than 100 years, in times of need, Lions always find a way to help those around them. And after we emerge from this, we will be stronger than ever. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Hi, my name is Jackie Lovezzo. I'm from Lake Katrine, and I support the Kingston Community Radio because it is an invaluable resource to the community and its residents.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by the First Savings Bank in Ulster County that still remains local to this day. Ulster Savings Bank, a community bank that's invested in local business, invested in community, invested in you. Ulster Savings Bank, your one-stop resource for everything local. Locations throughout the Hudson Valley and online at ulstersavings.com. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners who were with us the first half hour. Those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. We'd love to hear from you. This half hour, we have Michael Oliverie. He's running for alderman in the 7th Ward here in Kingston. Welcome. And alongside of me is Fred Costello, Supervisor, Town of Saugerties.
Good morning.
So great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited.
This is your first time doing radio. You did a radio show different time of the week, right?
Yeah, Tuesdays, every third Tuesday I was typically on with Nina and Cam.
Yep.
Okay.
But due to political issues with Nina, she's not allowed to talk about politics on the air. So they were gracious enough to have me come over here for a couple months while I go through my political career.
So you hang out with us for a little bit.
And I hang out with you guys for a while.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
We enjoy the company.
Thank you.
We used to have, prior to COVID, we would have a full slate because it's Supervisor Wednesday, and it would be Greg and I, Bill McKenna very often, and Shannon Harris. And that was kind of in line with this show when it was originally conceived. Walter Maxwell is still around, and he would co-host with the Sorghum Supervisor, who was Greg Helsmore at the time, and the Woodstock Supervisor, who was Jeremy Wilbur, and the Esopus Supervisor, who was Ray Rice. So it was kind of fun when we had those communities represented again. But during COVID, people just didn't want to come in.
Of course,
and there was
that's
a period where I
understandable.
called in. So try to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, it's definitely understandable. You better safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
True. True.
Absolutely.
And if somebody's not comfortable, there's no reason for them to come in. And I was comfortable coming in. There was other people coming in before we started to get into a much better place and fully vaccinated. I used to put myself. I still have my table.
Yeah, you got your little table.
I used to put myself in the corner so I could be as far away, and we would socially distance, and things went well.
Yeah, there was a couple times when I was on with Nina and Cam where I called in,
Mm-hmm.
and this was in the very early stages where there was a lot of uncertainty. So we'd call in, and then I think all three of us got to the point where we were comfortable to do in person. So I came back in the studio, and that's something you miss. When you do everything via telephone, you miss that in person and reading the other person's body language and expressions, and kind of feeding off each other and feeling the energy of the room.
That's true. That's 100% true. There's I think that's something that businesses are going to be challenged with too, because they have so much of their staff working from home. And for some businesses, that's okay. But I think to the degree certain businesses rely on that kind of aggregated energy that comes out of a population working together, there's going to have to be some opportunity for those folks to get back together and work and develop that energy again.
Yeah, it's definitely missing. Like I was listening to you guys on the radio before I came in, and I went to Yankee Stadium Saturday, and it was a sellout crowd of 11,000 because of restrictions, and it wasn't the same atmosphere because you feed off the energy of the crowd, and even the players feel. And you guys were talking about the Yankees, so I'm sure you're familiar with roll call. You couldn't even hear it because there was such a small group of people trying to shout it out. It just didn't have that same effect. And so we watched the game, but it wasn't. You didn't have that. I'm at Yankee Stadium. I'm surrounded by fans. I'm just going to have a good time. And even I forgot who it was, but one of the players hit a home run, and of course the lights go off and everything like that. But it was missing that energy of having those people there.
That's got to actually be. You think about it, or with me thinking about it, that's got to be like a little eerie sitting in Yankee Stadium with 11,000 people.
It was, and when we got there, there was a rain delay that we didn't even know about. So add that on top of, the people who are a little more local know that there's a rain delay, so they're not going to come to the stadium yet.
Right.
So we essentially had the stadium to ourselves.
Wow.
Like we went to the Yankee Museum, and not Monument Hall, like the actual museum there, we were the only ones there. Like it's silly to say, but I went to the bathroom and I had the whole bathroom to myself, and it's just there was no lines. It was just very eerie to walk into a cathedral of baseball like Yankee Stadium, and
Now,
the whole design of those buildings is to accommodate 50,000 people and get the energy for that. So if you're going to redesign for 11,000, it would look way different than it does now.
It was eerie. Yeah, that's the only word I could use. It was eerie.
Now, you know what I have to think about? Obviously, Yankee Stadium, there's more than 11,000 season ticket holders. How do they pick and choose? Is there a lottery?
I have I got my tickets on StubHub.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was definitely, and there wasn't even 11,000 people there. So I think it's just one of those things that season ticket holders are going to keep it, but they're just saying, okay, I'm not going to go to these games for now, and they sell.
But they still have to pay for a full season.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
But the resale market is obviously higher, so they may have paid $40 for the seats that they sold us for $65.
I say, yeah, gotcha.
There is a markup.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Was that your first time you went back to a ball game?
Going back, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first time going back, and it was just weird.
Just weird.
One of my goals outside of everything else I have going on, a bucket list item, so to say, is to visit every stadium in Major League Baseball. So I've been to 20 of 30, and it was my first, this is weird experience. I grew up, I was born in the Bronx, and I lived there till I was 7, so my grandfather had season tickets, so I was always at Yankee Stadium. And to just...
Those are some good memories.
Yes.
So would you hit 20 or 30?
Yep.
Stadiums?
Yeah.
Jack Keeley did every single stadium years ago.
I'm excited. Last year I was supposed to do both Chicago's, but unfortunately COVID hit, and that put a damper on that. But it's unfortunately after the Chicago's, it's going to be hit or miss. I have Seattle, Oakland, and San Francisco, and then I'm done with the West Coast. And then it's really, I think it's the Texas Rangers, the Kansas City Royals, the St. Louis Cardinals, and after the Chicago's, it would be Cincinnati, and then I'm done.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
what do you have on the plate for this year?
This year is very tough because I'm getting married at the end of this month. I have the primary in June, and then the general election in November. So
you're going to have a lot of free time for baseball.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much free time this year for baseball. Next year, I'm definitely going to try and do both Chicago's and Cincinnati. And then, like I said, after that, it's unfortunately going to have to be one-offs. But with the motivational speaking, because I travel the country, what I try to do is reach out to schools in some of the areas where, the teams are. And I say, hey, I'm a motivational speaker. This is what I do. And hopefully, they'll have me come out there.
So you didn't throw out to your soon-to-be wife that let's honeymoon in Chicago?
Yeah. No, I don't think that would fly with her.
You never know until you try.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So what are some of just for our listeners' benefit, what are some of the points, so to speak, that you're running on? Or what change would you like to see here in the city of Kingston?
Well, one of the biggest changes that I would like to see is just the not going with the flow of the elections. You see the votes for the Common Council, they're mostly 9-0 or 8-1, or they're just, it seems like everyone goes in line. So my slogan is I'm the choice of the people, not the party. I don't have, even though I'm a registered Democrat, and as I said earlier, I've been endorsed by the Republican and conservative parties, I feel like I'm going to do what's best for the people of my ward and the people of the city of Kingston. Regardless, I don't play party politics. I do what's best. And that's where I feel I bring out what is going to be best for the area. I walked around when I was getting my signatures, knocking on doors. The number one thing I heard from everyone is they don't feel like they're represented. The only time they heard from their alderman is when it got close to election time. They would voice their concerns and it never got heard. So to me, that's simple. That's stuff you could do at any time. Just reach out to your constituents and say, hey, listen, these are some of the topics that are going on in the area. What is your input? Because how can you represent the people in your area if you don't know what they're actually wanting? So as I said, I'm in Ward 7 and lucky enough to team up with the White Eagle Hall, and they're allowing me to use it for any events that I have. Like I had a get to know your candidate event a couple weeks ago, and they are letting me use it in the future for any ward meetings that I want to have. So at least monthly, I want to have a ward meeting for the different areas to have the people come in there and give them the voice that they want. They want to be heard, and I'm going to do what I feel is best for them. Not, okay, well, the party is telling me to do this, so that's what I'm going to do.
Do you think that's the case, or do you think that the Common Council leadership is providing the documentation and information in a way, because we get that criticism sometimes too, and I always try to get an agenda out the Thursday prior to a meeting so the board members have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to express any concerns or point out something that we may have overlooked. And by the time we get to the meeting, it's not necessarily a formality that they're going to support it, but at least if there was an issue, the rest of the board is aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to keep that collaborative effort going. And generally, until something's mature and there's a clear consensus, we don't bring it to the board for a vote. There's a number of projects we have going on right now where there's an acknowledgement that we need to do something, but there's potential solutions for that amongst the five of us are potentially different. And we're going through an exercise to try to find a point where there is a consensus to do something about it. And on some of those, it's not likely that we're going to get 5 people to support it, but we need 3 to do something about it.
Sure.
So I think there may be a component of that in the voting on the city council.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking anything. I'm just these are observations that I've made for myself. Mm-hmm. When the Daily Freeman posts something on their Facebook page, you can read all the comments on there. And like I said, walking the area, Ward 7 is pretty large, and it spans a very diverse group of people. And the hot button topics were, we don't feel like we're fairly represented. We don't hear from our aldermen. And excuse me, when I had a get to know your candidate event, I had a whiteboard put up with different topics, and I said, put a check mark next to what are you most concerned with, and the number one thing that they were concerned with was public safety. Mm-hmm. And I also had housing and better streets, sewer, garbage, infrastructure, and the overwhelming majority was public safety. They want, and as we see the increase in shooting, it doesn't seem to be addressed that much, and there is concern about that.
That is true. And we have folks in our community, we're outside the city, obviously, and we haven't suffered those types of events in our boundary in a while. But to the degree that it's happening in the house next door, you worry. So there's folks that are expressing a similar concern about public safety and what's going on with these random shootings, even in sororities. And I'm sure that's true across the northern half of the county. It's not something we would feel is normal, and our residents in both communities want to know that that's being looked at and assessed in a way that hopefully there could be a positive outcome and a resolution. It's difficult.
Oh, it's definitely difficult, and there's people who are for defunding the police and allocating resources in other places, and as you can read on the back of that. My stance is I don't think we should defund the police, but I am 100% for increasing more mental health awareness and having mental health advocates go along with the police. And a lot of my friends are on the job, and I've run these ideas by them, and they've all agreed. They're like, yeah, there does need to be an increase in the police academy for mental health studies and, for lack of a better term, customer service and, better ways of interacting with people. But to actually defund the police and allocate those resources somewhere else just is not going to be a good idea.
No, and that is only going to come back and burn in what, mm-hmm. Because as you alluded to, as you mentioned too, unfortunately, in both of our communities, we have seen violence on the uptick. We've seen the shootings here in the city of Kingston, and defunding police and reducing police is certainly not going to solve it. If anything, it could lead to further increase if there's less police. Unfortunately, the way as time has gone on, police officers, that primary purpose is law enforcement, have become mental health aides. Mm-hmm. They get called for just about everything. Yeah. With the opioid crisis, there's another component right there to it. So there's so many more additional burdens that have fallen onto the police over the recent years.
And it's tough. And, like I said, I've spoken to several of my friends, and they're in every different department in in law enforcement, from state troopers all the way down to the local area. And they all say, with the increase of all these new hats that they're wearing comes that lack of education on that. And I've tried to come up with solutions. I'm one of those where I won't state, well, this is the problem, what are we going to do about it? I try to come up with solutions as well to the problem. Yeah. And, so I asked them, I was like, okay, well, what about teaming up with some of the local colleges who, have mental health awareness programs and everything like that to further the education throughout the academy to help with this, not new wrinkle, but, since it's become so abundant now and in everyone's face of the mental health area, like what about adding that to the academy? And every single one of them, hands down, said, yes, 100% that's what we need to do. And then we need to offer these courses for people who are already through the academy who are on the job right now. And like I said, every single one of them said, yes, that is what we need. So it's not that the officers themselves are not willing to do this. It's just giving them the resources to be able to do it.
Right. That's the key. That's a very key point. The resources to do all these additional hats that they wear.
Yeah. And as you said before, like defunding and allocating the resources somewhere else is just it won't have a positive impact. As you said, we'll see the increase in violence crimes. We'll see the increase in shootings because they just aren't there, or they're not able to do the job that they need to do for all of us to feel safe.
Yeah, they need to be successful. In training, the training's out there, but there needs to be a commitment by, our department would go to training every day, but there has to be a balance between being on the street and doing the job and going to get trained. And also there needs to be a commitment by the administration to sponsor those programs. I'm extraordinarily proud of our department for the effort that they put into training, and we have a number of instructors. Lieutenant Schwartz has been acknowledged as an instructor in many, many parts of it, some of it diversity training and things of that nature, and those are becoming more and more important, especially as the makeup of our communities change and the expectations for how police officers behave changes, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Oh, of course. I'm fully those who wrong the badge should be punished.
Absolutely.
But you can't do a global all cops are bad. No. In every industry, in every profession, there's
bad apples. Yeah.
So I have gone to a couple public meetings. There's a group of women who are just doing phenomenal things in the community where they're trying to bridge the gap between the community and the police officers. And so they have a couple events where, you can basically shake hands with a cop, ask a cop a bunch of questions. I know Chief Tinty's been involved in that heavily, and they are trying to come up with solutions for this. How we can bridge the gap, how, one side can understand what the other side is expressing and what fears and concerns are. So things are being done in the community, and I'm blessed and proud to be a part of that, to offer insight and to get the public's feelings and concerns, and then, express my feelings and concerns and ideas as well to try and come up with a solution for everyone. Because, at the end of the day, everyone wants to go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have families too.
Yeah.
Want to go home and be safe.
Want to go home and be safe. And, like I said, the public safety is a major concern. Like I said, I walk different streets in my area, and everyone's saying the same thing. With the rise of these violent crimes happening in Kingston, they're concerned, and they want to know what's going to happen.
What's the geography of the district of Ward 7? Does that include Kingston Point Beach and the Brickyard? And
so it's basically 1st, 2nd, 3rd Ave, East Chester down to right around Mickey's Igloo, all the way down to Foxhall, Darrenbacher's the halfway point over to Delaware.
That is a big one. That is a big ward.
Yeah, so it's 7-1, 7-2, and 7-3 is what it's divided into.
Why 1, 2, 3? Where does that fall in?
That I'm really not 100% sure on. I just know the maps, they divided into different lines, and so when I do have those ward meetings, it'll be like, okay, this week will be 7-1, this week will be 7-2, 7-3. So, I'm not inundated with the whole community coming in at once, and then, but I still have the opportunity to give every area their representation.
Opportunity. Yeah. Perfect. Good. On the first couple you did you have an okay turnout?
Yeah, we had about 25, 30 people show up.
That's good.
Yeah, I was surprised. And, a lot of this is just me doing things, okay, what do I think this event should be like? I got a little insight from the people who were helping me out, but for the most part, it was just me. Savona's donated a sub for me, so we had food and water for individuals who showed up. And it was a good turnout. Like I said, that whiteboard that I had, we had a lot of tick marks on that where people, expressed their concerns and what areas they would like to see improvement in.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it was like I said, very good turnout. I had a lot of insight, and I was happy with it. And now it's just continuing. Like I said, the primary is June 22nd for the Democratic nominee, and I'm just gonna keep chugging along, knocking on doors, making phone calls, and getting my information out there.
Yeah. It's coming up really quick.
Yeah, it's when you look at the whole political calendar, you're like, okay, but when you go day to day, it's like you blink and
time goes by
something's
really
right
fast.
there. You're like, oh, okay.
It's, when they did the election reform 2 years ago, it's odd still for me because when I came in to politics, generally in the summertime, you would be going through the nominating process by the parties. So you started thinking heavily about it in early spring. So by April, you're sort of in the mindset of making decisions about who's going to run, who's not going to run, and what affiliations they're going to seek. But now that the new political calendar is out and the primaries moved to June, you're sitting at Christmas dinner having those conversations and thinking about, are you going to run again? Are you not going to run again? Which parties are you going to seek? It's kind of, it's really, and it extends that period of time. The emotions of it all are still compressed, I find, but you're doing it from the end of the prior year all the way till election day, and then you still don't. It's a long time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it though.
It's fun.
I have a great support cast with me, and my circle, as I call them, they're there for anything. If I need to vent, if I need to run ideas, if anything, they're willing to pick up a phone, call someone, go knock on a door. And I have people who were former alder women of Ward 6 and 7 who have been extremely helpful. They just said, anything you need, we'll help you out tremendously, which is great, because I don't have, as I said before, I don't have like the backing, so to say, of a party where they were like, this is our nominee, we're putting them out there. This is a grassroots effort. This is just me going out there, making phone calls, getting introduced to people, telling them where I stand on things, and them getting to know me, and they're behind it, which I feel incredibly honored by, because like I said, in a political world, Michael Oliverie isn't that known. But when people get to know me and they see what I'm about and my history and who I am, they get behind me, which I think is what politics should be about, like getting to know the person and not vote, okay, well, this person's a Democrat or this person's a Republican, so I'm just voting for them. I'm going to vote for the person who I feel is going to do the best job to represent me regardless. Like I think we've spent, especially the last 4 or 6 years at extreme ends of the political spectrum. It's just been like if one side has to be right, it's because the other side is wrong. And I think we're finally getting to a point where people are more willing to come back towards the middle again and just say, you know what, I'm going to vote for the person that I feel is going to do the best job for me.
On a local level, I agree.
Yeah.
But when in politics overall, my theory is that until we do campaign finance reform, we're not going to bridge that divide. It's, I think Kevin told us one day it costs $10,000 a day to stay in Congress. Something
some crazy
really absurd. And if no one has that kind of money, so you become beholden to the PACs.
Yes,
and that's not okay because those PACs, you don't even know who's supporting them. Prior to the Supreme Court did that big decision that enabled corporations to behave like a person, and they can raise money, and now it became the beginning of the super PAC.
Oh yeah,
Unseated Feingold's campaign finance reform. They need to go back and fix that.
Yes, they do. Yeah, that does need to be fixed.
Yeah, that's put us on a bad footing, And I think the divisions that you just pointed to are partially because of that. You know, if you need $10,000 a day, you have to represent those PACs because they can give you the money you need to stay.
Yeah, there's not an individual who hasn't made their money ahead of time that would be able to afford something like that. And like you said, $10,000 a day, that's
a lot of money.
Absurd. It's absurd, yeah. And, you just stop and think about it, $10,000 a day, over 365 days out of the year, to be in Congress. I mean, that's
not how it was meant to be.
No,
exactly.
Never, ever meant to be, and it shouldn't be.
No.
Plain and simple. Until we see that kind of reform, unfortunately, that's where it has to change. There has to be reform.
Agreed. 100% agree with that.
All right, Lawrence is giving us a finger.
So we are at the top of the hour. Wow, that was a quick half hour that went by. So Michael Oliverie, thank you very much for taking time out of what I'm sure is a very, very busy day, every day for you leading up to the primary. Wish you the best of luck and success, and we'll see you right back here the second Wednesday in June.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
We'll be back in a few, listeners.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're fighting against childhood cancer every day. At the heart of this battle are our donors.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact that no one has to pay, it's a place where everyone is treated as an equal.
Everybody is welcome here. And it doesn't matter your religion or what part of the world you're from, all that is taken away. It just gives you some hope.
It's just a nice feeling to put your energy into something that really does genuinely make a difference in a child's life.
There's just no greater gift. If we have the ability to help, then we have a responsibility to help.
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Find out how you can help at stjude.org.
Central Hudson reminds you, when it comes to your home's wiring, safety matters. Overheated electric cords or outlets are signs of inadequate wiring, within your wall, in an appliance, or both. Circuit breakers or fuses that trip often is usually a sign that a circuit is overloaded, an appliance is faulty, or something is wrong that can shock a person or cause a fire. Have a trained electrician troubleshoot such problems immediately.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
Rondout Savings Bank has a long history of serving local communities and maintaining a strong tradition of customer service excellence while providing each customer with the personal attention they deserve. Rondout Savings' approach to community banking puts you and the growth of your business in the front of everything they do. They're a different kind of bank and would like to tell you why, so please reach out to one of their expert business bankers for an appointment and let them show you what they can do for you. Rondout Savings Bank, always working for you and the community with branches in Kingston, West Hurley, and Hyde Park. Also online at rondoutbank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners. Excuse me, that have been with us here the first hour. And those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. We would love to hear from you. In the studio here with me is Fred Costello, Supervisor, Town of Sorgetes. And we are expecting, I haven't heard anything different, we are expecting Assemblyman Kevin Cahill.
And our sandwiches. I'm starving. I was going to buy a breakfast sandwich this morning. I was like, wait, it's the second Wednesday of the month. I don't have to do that today.
And normally, this is time for birthdays, but
yeah,
unfortunately, no birthdays today.
Boyce's cow pie will not be used.
No, a Boyce's cow pie goes to waste. So send in those birthdays, listeners. Very easy to do. You can email kcr921@gmail.com. You can postal mail to Kingston Community Radio, P.O. Box 4364, Kingston, New York, 12402. So let's get those birthdays in. Let's not waste the cow pies. I believe today, since we don't have any birthdays, it's worth mentioning, but Donna and Johnny O's anniversary. Donna
really?
and Johnny O'Rourke's.
You could have submitted that.
Yeah, I probably should have. You know that? But
good for them.
Well, last week, especially from Wednesday on, I was a little out of it.
You're normal right now, though. Normal for you.
Now, wait a minute. I am not normal. We all know I'm not normal. That's, That's,
Apart from your priest, though, we wouldn't know any different.
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's done. I'm glad it's over with. The first 24, 36 hours, it was...
a little bit uncomfortable?
Yeah. It was. But I expected that. I expected actually longer than that. But, and hopefully when I see him a week from Friday, everything is good. And there's a possibility I may be starting physical therapy. Now, whether that means I still continue to wear the sling, because, I've run into some people that told me they've been in a sling for 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Whatever they say, that's what you have to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not deviating.
Right.
No. I'm not going to go through it again.
No
way.
So hopefully something you can avoid entirely, but you definitely don't want to go through it twice.
So we were speaking about the early voting for our listeners in Sorgetes. We do have early voting taking place right in Sorgetes. You don't have to go outside of the Sorgetes area. To take advantage of early voting, which starts on June the 13th and runs through June the 20th, right at the Frank D. Greco Memorial Center, Senior Citizen Center. And also the county will be doing early voting for their general election in Sorgetes. Last year we did early voting for the primary, but not for the general election. So our Sorgetes residents had to travel elsewhere to take advantage of early voting. Which they
I actually voted in Woodstock myself.
So I don't know if
we're going to have
I don't know if they expanded on the number of sites, or that they just maybe are not doing in a community that they did last year and are doing it in Sorgetes. Although we did it in Sorgetes again just for the primary last year, not for the general election.
I don't know. Well, hopefully, as the election gets closer, we'll have Mr. Quigley and Mrs. Dittis on, and they can share the changes that they implemented for this year. I know they're always trying to make it as convenient as possible, and I think part of their confidence in maybe having additional sites is that the infrastructure worked. They were able to register those votes successfully and train people to do it and identify problems when they cropped up. So maybe they feel confident enough that they can expand the number of locations for it. One thing I did notice was election day, by 6:30 or 7 o'clock, a majority of the people had voted, even in the presidential. That because of early voting, I think folks took that opportunity, and on election day itself, there was less for presidential. I remember going late in the afternoon around 7 o'clock, and the line would be out the door at the firehouse, and that was not the case even during the presidential. People had already voted by then, so
we've got a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on Kingston Community Radio.
Good morning, and
Morning.
I hope you heal quickly with your shoulder.
Thank you.
You know, years ago I did have a rotacup, but I didn't have surgery. I had cortisone and I had physical therapy that took care of it. One thing I would like to say about earlier in the program, because I have it on right away, when you were talking about the towers and everything. Okay, I listened to the program on both stations. They both come in equally as far as clarity, and one isn't better than the other.
So you get clear reception where you are on the corner of Main and Washington on AM 92?
Yes.
Interesting.
I had both on. Like I have one radio on in my bedroom, and I have one on in my kitchen.
Oh, wow.
And one is AM, one is FM. And
Okay.
it equally, everything comes out very, very clear.
Wow. And you feel the quality on both signals is just as good?
It's just as good, yes.
Wow. Good for you. That's great.
You know, so I just wanted to let you know that because you were talking about it
And
earlier.
I've never,
so I just wanted to bring that up.
I've never actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever listened from, I must have at one time from conventional radio. If I'm happen to be in the office or like days like when Nina is on or something, I may just have it, on the computer, going and be doing other stuff. But I know in the car radio, FM is much, much clearer. But that's good to hear. And again, as Jennifer was driving me up to Albany last Wednesday, I had the show on, and well north of Catskill on the FM side.
Still catching the signal.
Still catching the signal.
Yeah.
Good morning, State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill. Welcome.
Morning.
In your customized mask.
Yeah, I didn't even. It's got my name on it.
I see that. That's why I say it's a customized mask.
I was getting out of the car with packages in my hand, and I had to find the one I could slip on with one hand. And this is the longest, skinniest string. So,
well, see what they did up at the Bone and Joint. They did something very similar. So I can put this on now with just one hand, where the other one that I had, I could never seem to get it on with one hand.
I apologize for my tardiness. Colleen,
No.
Colleen at Market Basket said blame her, so I will. As I said, I'll go on the air and I'll say, Colleen, you chose to take delivery of food, so you had food all day rather than make food for somebody right now. I got it. All the delivery people showed up at the same time. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
And so I did send Fred 2 texts this morning so far. I don't know if you got either one, but
I'm trying not to look at my phone. Let's see what we got. I'm sure you got
it's not Lent. What are you doing that for?
It's not Lent. You still with us there, Mrs. R?
No, I asked her if she had answered your question, or if you answered her question. She said, "Yeah."
Okay.
She
Well,
said,
I'm
"Have a
sure
nice day."
I'm sure she's still listening.
Yes.
So, Mrs. R, thank you for your call. We always we look forward to your calls, and it's good to hear that the AM signal up there in Sorgeties on the corner of Main and Washington is a strong signal.
That's a nice surprise, because generally I have a much better experience with the FM signal.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to listen. So it's good.
So I sent Fred at the
Multiple texts.
7 o'clock hour. I sent him a text about from the Wikipedia page of WGHQ's origins, and I knew it was WSKN, Saugerties, Kingston. I think either
Network?
New Paltz or Newburgh or something. But Lawrence, you were on Glasgow Turnpike. That's where your studios were. And your transmitter were both together on Glasgow Turnpike in Saugerties.
Okay, so that was
Tom Sutton's building.
You got me. I don't know.
where Tom
Wikipedia didn't go into that level of detail.
They were only there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Then they moved to John Street.
They moved to John Street and upped the signal when they moved to John Street, because they also moved the transmitter down to Port Ewan at that point, and changed the format a couple of times, and it was it's pretty interesting history. I then went in to look at KMY, and KMY was the first station, and GHQ was the second station, and there's no information about WBAZ, which was the third station in Kingston, 1550. But WKMY was started in the 1930s. Didn't go on the air right away, but they got their license in the mid 1930s, and they actually transmitted for 2 years from my building, the Governor Clinton building.
Oh, really?
Which was pretty cool. They did their first remote was from, I think it was one of the churches in Uptown Kingston, but GHQ. The Wikipedia page was very interesting, and
really interesting.
Especially if you start to look at the footnotes and you click on them, you start to see stuff like I saw the FCC card for the radio stations, with lists absolutely everything about them when they went in to test their transmitters to see how they were working. So what you just did on the air with one of the people that were listening is a regular procedure for radio stations. In fact, for WBAZ, which is long defunct, there was a letter to a person that said this will verify that indeed the signal you heard was our signal. So that was part of the test. So
interesting.
Yeah. Radio is very interesting. It looks to me like the development of radio in the United States was in the 30s and 40s. Not so much the 20s when it was actually technologically available, but the 30s and 40s, and then going up to the war, the way signals were divided and boosted and kept contained almost seemed like a national defense issue. And that explains a great deal about how for decades and decades, radio frequencies were treated like these very precious and very exclusive resources. And they still are. Of course, now there's a lot more competing for them. It's not just people that want to have, their top 40 station or contemporary radio or talk radio. It's people who want to operate remote control cars, and people who want to be able to have what they call a subcarrier signal to do other things, not just broadcast sound. So pretty interesting stuff.
It is interesting stuff. Wow.
And it's kind of interesting too that it's gravitating towards the internet. There's we've even done it here, but a lot of radio people are having the opportunity to go on to multiple apps and websites to listen to their favorite stations wherever it may be in the world.
So before you went on the air this morning at 7:00, I was listening to WGHQ, and one of the bumpers on the radio was ask your smart device to play WGHQ radio. So I put it on, and I said, maybe we'll be able to hear KCR, but at 7:00 it stays that station, and KCR doesn't come on the app.
Okay.
But you can still get it on the YouTube channel, which is where I generally listen to it when I'm not near an actual good old-fashioned radio.
So if someone asks Alexa to put on WGHQ...
you just set off like 15 Alexas around.
I did. For sure. And they're going to get Pamela's regional broadcast, not the local.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
And that's the importance of us being here, to provide this local platform for people to raise their local concerns.
But you're right about the different means by which people are receiving radio today. Radio Woodstock is a national, maybe even an international phenomenon. The other radio station in Kingston has probably as great an internet presence as it has an air presence. And then, of course, WGHQ has gone through several different permutations over the last couple of years. And you can really see, Lawrence isn't here, the Robin Hood Radio era is in there as well that he was discussing this morning. Okay. But the very fact that WGHQ AM is now also on an FM carrier is in and of itself significant. But I don't think on air is anywhere close to dead. I think that there's a great market for it. I think, I have satellite radio, but I also listen to terrestrial radio on a fairly regular basis too. I flip between the two, and there's something about listening to a community. There's something about hearing what matters to the community, even if it's just the music the community wants to hear. It's really significant. So I'm grateful that our friends, the Maxwells, have decided to keep this going, even though it's got to totally be a labor of love.
Yeah, I agree. But it should be cherished, and I think we, because we're part of it, do. But when I talk to folks that are regular listeners, they understand it and they get it as well. Yeah. And there's an appreciation for this platform becoming increasingly unique, and it has a value. So,
And as Greg watched me pull my notes out.
That looks like a lot of research.
No, it's okay. It's my staff. Mike did this. Mike Darcy put this all together. And the first thing that he has on it is the COVID numbers, which I don't know if you've been over today yet, but looking pretty good.
Positive.
Yeah, there's 245 active cases in Ulster County and 516 active cases in Dutchess County, and 81,000, almost 82,000 Ulster County residents have been vaccinated.
What's the population of Ulster County?
About 189, so that's about 45%. Dutchess County has about 117,000 people vaccinated. That's about 32%. Those numbers are a little deceptive, I think, because, number one, we don't know whether the people who are second homeowners have gotten their vaccine elsewhere. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know if that's included in this statistic. I'm not sure, not to raise a Andrew Cuomo's sore spot. I'm not sure where the nursing home issue fits into all this. So there's a lot of things about the statistic that may or may not be entirely telling. And this morning I heard you talking about the outdoor transmission. And the CDC, talk about the seeds of confusion, but we'll come back to that in a minute. The CDC said less than 10% transmission in outdoors, and then tests have proven it's less than 1%. What the CDC was saying at less than 10% is we're not going to say less than 1%, because we think it's important to say, be cautious.
Okay, so the news source that I got this from, unless I missed it, I don't believe said that CDC said less than 10%.
They originally did, yeah. That's what they said, and that's been a little bit of the controversy.
Okay, I thought they'd come out and said it was 10%. So, and didn't use the wording less than, and just used 10%.
Yeah, no,
but I could have missed it, or the news source that I got it from could have somehow omitted it. But
here's what happened since last year, especially, but it's happened with great frequency ever since this internet was readily available. People say, well, the CDC kept changing their mind. Well, it's not the same as me saying, today I like the color blue and tomorrow I like the color yellow. It's based upon research and data and science. So it's not really changing their mind as it is refining their answer, even if the answer is 180 degrees different from what they had before. If, it's not to get hyper philosophical here, but the allegory of the cave is perfectly apt here. If all you see is the shadows on the wall, then you think that's the world. But once you get out in the real world, you start to see more. And that's exactly what scientists have been doing. Unfortunately, that information, which is usually taken by other scientists and treated skeptically, because science is very skeptical, was fed to the general public as quote-unquote news. And once it was news, it was gospel. Mm-hmm. And you're not supposed to change the gospel. So,
I alluded to that in the first half hour. You can't be saying that it's contradictory information, because as time has gone on, and thankfully they've been able to do some remarkable things in short periods of time. Okay, when I say short periods of time, to develop a vaccine as quickly as they did, that was proven to be so effective, the percentage so high, and then obviously the scientists, the researchers that have continued the research have found, okay, no, this is this. We said this originally, but now we're finding that's not the case. So I look at it as all good stuff, because it's showing that they're continuing to not only develop additional vaccines or additional treatments for this COVID-19, but also expand on what they've already have developed.
So when we went into outer space, they found out that gravity prevented ballpoint pens from working the way they did. So they invented a new kind of pen, right? Mm-hmm. And ever since then, we've all had access to that improved pen. It's improved society. The microcircuitry that was involved in the first space flights proved to be less than adequate for their needs, so they improved upon that. We got the benefit of that as a society. What we saw with, and it always troubled me how fast they got the vaccine. That has been eating at me, but then I found out how, and it makes perfect sense. And maybe, just maybe, for people who think I can't ever say anything good about the former president, maybe this will be his legacy, that he led the charge to force many, many resources into the development of a vaccine very quickly. And it was those resources that made it possible. Instead of being a linear approach, which is the way most drugs are developed, one step, a trial, bigger group, bigger trial, outcomes, blah, blah, blah. Everything was done simultaneously. It was crowdsourced. It was done multiple times with the largest ever audience of people in the test. And of course, it was a science that was ready to pop anyway. The
mRNA.
Yeah. It was ready to go anyway. I know a person who left state legislature as a staffer to go into that business because they said they had actually been treated with experimental drugs for cancer and were so impressed they said I'm going for this, and they went into that business. So the technology was ready to go.
I share that enthusiasm though. Yeah. I think that this is going to be one of those sea change moments in medical treatments for a whole variety of ailments.
Absolutely. And what is it going to do when, not us hopefully, but when a third world nation sees a massive outbreak and there is a need to address it immediately? Mm-hmm. We now have the tools to do so.
Yep. Yes.
And
inevitably, and hopefully we don't see it in our lifetimes, inevitably that's going to occur. Mm-hmm. Just like inevitably, you could have said 50 years ago, inevitably something which occurred with the pandemic here is going to occur.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm going to win the lottery, but it doesn't mean I'm going to win the lottery twice.
Right.
It's who knows what's actually going to happen. What I think is important, and this is one of the things as the position that I hold in the Assembly that differs me from some of my colleagues. My position is different from some of my colleagues. Is I hope that there are lessons to be learned and then applied to the future. And the reason I say that's different is I chair the Insurance Committee. And insurance, if nothing else, requires a long view. There is no single time that you can stand in the middle of a calamity and say, now I know what to do.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? That is so, though, with healthcare, with economics and all the other stuff that we do, transportation, all the things that we found the weaknesses in. At the exact time, we said, okay, now we have those weaknesses specifically identified. Let's address them. With insurance, you have to get a longer perspective on things. And I think as we get a longer perspective on COVID, we will identify. We have already identified a few things. We've identified that the internet is here, the internet is important, the internet is vital to everyday life, and that there are inequities in the way the internet is available to the general public. We learned that healthcare can be delivered in person or healthcare can be delivered remotely.
Virtually, yeah.
Right? We've learned that our food security is very tenuous. We've learned that we have enough food to last us for a couple of weeks, but the entire food supply milieu is colored by a lot of different factors, including how much money you have in your pocket. Not how much do you earn, because you could lose your job. How much do you have in your pocket? How much do you have in your pantry? How much does your community have in its pantry? We learned that when you interrupt supply chains, that is, one would think that would be a deflationary tool, that it is incredibly inflationary, that the supply chain interruption has led to spikes in all kinds of costs that economists don't seem to be too worried about because they think it's temporary. So there's so much we've learned.
I lose some sleep over that.
Oh,
you hear, you can't get building
Warren
supplies.
Buffett's losing some sleep over it. Yeah.
I fear if there's not a return to some stability that we're going to price ourselves out of an opportunity to recover economically.
If we could inject $10 trillion into the economy and not have something push prices up, then that says something weird about our economy. How can you take the entire economy, triple it, and then not have any impact?
Have a price increase.
Right. However, what actually happened, 2/3 under the previous administration, 1/3 under this administration, was we pushed up the floor. What took Congress maybe 6 or 7 years to do in the 1930s, we did in 6 or 7 months. And we recognized the impact of that from the Great Depression and how we didn't do the right thing in 2008. We created a long, slow recession that caused a lot of pain. So we buffered the bottom. And we'll pay the price for it. There's no question about it. But I think that when we pay that price, we have to think about the dislocation we avoided, the humanity that we brought to the task. And I think that's going to be the story of this thing. There's going to be a lot to learn. We're going to start our hearings in insurance probably in about a month and a half, right after session is over. And we're now deciding how to do it. I think we're going to do it in specific silos. We're going to do healthcare. We're going to do property and casualty. We're going to do the other external insurances like medical malpractice and things like that separately. But we're going to take a long view. And the questions are not even as obvious as we thought they would be in the middle of this whole thing.
So do you oversee unemployment insurance and disability in those as well?
I don't oversee that. That's done by the labor folks. What I do see is income replacement insurance, and that was a very, very significant discussion, and we're doing some work on that right now. But the unemployment insurance, workers' compensation is all done by the labor committee. But I'm happy to work with Chairman LaToya Joyner and do that together.
They're going to have a tall task to figure out too.
They already are. Have you been? Are you unemployed? Did you get your verification letter? I know so many people that have.
I did get one, and I got a card. I got a letter that someone had applied, and then I got I got a letter quickly that they identified that it was fraud, not to worry. But then I got a card in the mail. I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I called again, and apparently I'm not eligible, thank God, and I didn't apply, so hopefully we're all right.
We're at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back in a few.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right
that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners who have been with us this morning. Those just joining us for the last half hour already, welcome. 331-9255 is our call-in number. We have in the studio here State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill and Fred Costello, Supervisor, Town of Saugerties, who's taking care of business. He has lots of business to take care of, busy man. So
let's get some sad business out of the way. A couple of community icons have passed since the last time I've been on the air. Somebody actually who I was texting with off air last time I was on, Tommy Keegan from Keegan Ales. He suddenly passed away doing something that he loved, off-roading on his motorcycle. But he had a heart attack and was just a huge loss to the community. Tommy was involved in so many charitable events and just brought a great spirit. It was that Keegan Ales was and remains a gathering spot for a significant cross-section of Kingston. When you walk in there, you're going to see the kids with piercings and the hipsters from Brooklyn, and you're going to see the local folks who are, some of the neighbors who walk over to Keegan's. And that was all because of the spirit that Tommy brought. His beers are great. We love them. I went back there on Saturday after he passed, and I'm generally an Old Capitol guy or, a Hudson Lager guy. But I raised a Mother's Milk in his honor because that was his first award-winning beer. And just a terrific person. Our last conversations were about promoting the Kingston Stockade Football Club and all the work he's been doing with them. I think without Tommy Keegan, and all due respect to Dennis Crowley, who runs the team and owns the team, but without Tommy Keegan, we never would have seen the enthusiasm that there was. I will always, in my mind, the image that I will carry of this man for forevermore will be when he did old-time baseball. And he had everybody suited up in old-time baseball clothes, and he was old-time sticks and old-time balls. And they marched from Keegan Ales to the Kingston Plaza where they played the game. He will be greatly missed, and there's no replacing him. And what's interesting about Tommy is that he was not from here. He was and proudly was from Long Island, and he talked about it all the time. He also declared himself an American, not an Irish American, and he said, it's okay that I have Irish heritage, but I'm an American, and but he was largely responsible for making keeping the Shamrock Run popular in our community. So much.
We do have a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air with Kingston Community Radio.
Good morning, gentlemen. How is everybody doing up there today?
Very well. How are you today?
Very good, very good. My question for Kevin is there a way that we can get a veterans discount at the New York State public golf courses that the New York State runs and operates? I know they have what they call a Liberty Pass, but that is only if you're 40% disabled or greater.
I'll check into it. Well, my staff will listen in today, or will listen on the YouTube recording of this presentation, and I'll also scribble a note down, George. Veterans discount for state-run golf courses. Got it.
Right. A couple of weeks ago, we went over to Dinsmore. They have a seniors discount, which I qualify for, but they have no veterans discount whatsoever.
Got it.
And earlier, they was talking about all the money that goes into political elections and everything. Can you imagine if all that money that they put into those elections, some way is routed to all the poor people and everything else, or the people that are in need and everything else, instead of just for advertising, how much that would benefit everybody throughout the entire country?
I didn't hear that discussion, but I will say that I think election costs are out of control.
Yes.
I hear about our friends running for local offices, city council, town board, county legislature, that are having fundraisers. It's like, what?
Right, yeah. It's to the point where when you have somebody that puts in about $240,000 for a district attorney's race, and for a small county, which also is kind of a small county, it's not one of the super large counties, but that money is astronomical. And when you talk presidential elections and the other ones,
that doesn't sound so astronomical to me. My last high-priced campaign, which now is decades ago. Literally, it was the year 2000 was the last time I had a very expensive campaign, both on the Republican and the Democratic side of the aisle. And in 2000, I think about $400,000 was spent. But in 1998, over $700,000, and I don't know what that translates into 2021 dollars. Over
Right.
$700,000 was spent for this assembly seat, and we have since had assembly races that have passed the $1 million mark significantly. It's just ridiculous. Now,
Yeah, it
part of the issue is we don't have the easy, direct, textbook way to reach voters anymore. We used to have, in Kingston, we had the 2 radio stations and 1 daily newspaper, 1 weekly newspaper, and that was pretty much it. Now, radio stations got a little bit more dispersed. Newspapers stopped being read generally by the public, and even telephone polling doesn't work because we don't have everybody's number anymore. So you have to do so many different things that really probably wind up being redundant that it's very expensive. But I will say this, one thing I know about money in politics, it does not enhance the public discussion. All too often, money in politics is used for the opposite reason. It's to create a tax, to suppress voting, to do negative campaigning. I often say if your only reason for running is don't vote for the other guy, don't run.
Don't run.
Right.
I agree with that.
And if your only reason for running is to say, government doesn't work, well, then don't be part of government. Do something else. If you think that charities work better than government, go to work for a charity. But I really cringe when I hear people running negative campaigns. I turn them down. I have refused to do them, and I will, no matter what happens, I'll not do negative campaigns.
Right.
That doesn't mean I won't call my opponent out for their views. It doesn't mean I won't call them out for things that evince, very deep character flaws. But I'm not going to run my campaign on it. When I run for office and people that I respect run for office, they run because they want to serve and they can convey that to the people. And, on that note, Pat Ryan was in the national news recently for starting a political action committee that specifically looks for people who have already demonstrated in their life that they live for service. Whether it's emergency responses, first responders, people from the military. And I just applaud them for that. I think that's great to try to attract those kind of folks to government. We need more of it. We need fewer people who think that, hey, look at me.
Right, yeah. We need more people that run on the issues and a lot less people that got to badmouth and stuff like with Donald Trump and stuff, the way that you viciously attack your opponent and stuff. We don't need that. We want campaigns on issues. Tell me what you're going to do and then follow up on it.
Right.
And like I've said in the past, Kevin, I always have appreciated the way that you ran. In all the years I've lived up here since '82, I've never heard you run a campaign filled with mud, and that's why I respect you for it, sir.
Well, thank you so much.
And hey, that's what we need. That's what this country needs. We need to sit down and work together. Once the election's over, let's work together. You're there for all the people of the state, all the people of the country. And let's work for the benefit of everybody.
Right.
But thank you, sir. You guys have a great day. And
we'll have an answer for you on your veterans golf course discount.
Right, and yeah, 'cause I'm a golfer. I enjoy it. But I also like to see for the younger ones that don't get the senior discounts, you know what I mean.
And by the way, it's Veterans Recognition Week for anybody who doesn't know. We've been dealing with it in Albany.
We got Veterans Day coming up. It's not a day for picnics and parties. It's a day for remembering all the veterans who served and all the veterans who gave their lives for the veterans who gave their lives for this country and stuff.
I think you meant to say Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, that's what happens when you get old.
You're not old, George. Come on.
Thank you, guys. And
thanks, George.
I did notice that you said postal mail and not snail mail.
Ooh. Yes, sir.
So have a great day.
You do the same. Thanks for your call. Have an awesome day.
Speaking of old, the second tragic loss in Kingston, in our greater Kingston area in the past couple of days, was Ed Ford, our city historian.
Yeah.
And there's a network of historians, and I've been friendly with Carlin and Sorgetes and of course Alf Evers in Woodstock and Ed Ford in Kingston. They're just such resources. But besides all that, besides everything that Ed has memorialized about our town, he was just a genuinely nice human being. He was just somebody who I don't think, maybe he raised his voice, but I don't know anybody who ever heard it.
Yeah,
In fact,
Actually, never met him.
had to
I met him
lean
through
in.
the radio a couple times, and that was it.
Well, he was often my go-to, and I was very happy to. And the news was delivered to me by somebody who's carrying on his legacy in a very significant way, Paul O'Neill, the Commissioner of Jurors, who has just grabbed history of the area and just made it his vocation, his avocation. But Ed Ford was so tremendous. 103 years old. You never would have known it.
No.
And his brother Bill, who's in the infirmary, is a spry. I think he's 101.
We got a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air with Kingston Community Radio.
Good morning. It's very sad we're losing so many of the wonderful people that have created, the community that we do have, and that just teach us what the past has been and why we are so fortunate to be where we are today. But I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yes,
Surprise. At one time we were told that there is a limit on the amount of money that individuals or corporations could put into any election. And this past election, we hear Bloomberg saying he's put $1 billion in. Yeah. We have these big corporations. We have these very wealthy people that are really controlling much of the elections just by the sheer amount of money that was put in. What happened to that law, or was it a law, that limited what individuals and corporations could put into an election?
Well, Paul, the election finance law is like a balloon that's 3/4 filled with air. If you squeeze at one end, it gets fat at the other end. If you squeeze at that end, it gets fat someplace else. And it's the same with this. It looks for the loopholes. And those individual limits still exist. You can only give, I think, up to $1,000. Maybe it's $2,000 to a member of Congress. The limits for Assembly, because I know you're going to be writing me a check soon, are in excess of $4,000. So go ahead. It's huge. It's massive. It's ridiculous. Those limits still exist. But there's something called an independent expenditure, a political action committee, an independent expenditure committee that can, as long as they do not coordinate with the candidate, can spend as much as they want. So it is a giant loophole through which you can drive a tractor trailer, and many people do, filled with cash. We see it all the time. Most of the attack ads we see are not funded by the candidates themselves. They are funded by third parties. And even here in New York State, and I was just talking about the expense of the races that I've been involved with, those races weren't run by the Friends of Kevin Cahill or the Committee to Elect My Opponent. They were run by the Republican Assembly Campaign Committee and the Democratic Assembly Campaign Committee. And those folks were able to get massive donations that people would not have been allowed to give individuals, and they were allowed to spend it on my race, provided I didn't coordinate with them and I didn't tell them what to do. Actually, I could coordinate with them. The law says I can with a legislative campaign committee. But if it were a third party, an independent campaign committee, such as I think Donald Trump just started one, and they can raise whatever they want and spend it on whatever they want and say whatever they want. And that's not very democratic.
That's wrong.
Yeah, what we need to do is we, the people, are responsible because we're the ones who have the power through our ability to vote and willingness to vote. We, the people, need to start using our common sense and start thinking, what are the implications? And what we have to do is get over the emotional attachment to parties. And when we have parties that are just, gotten out of hand in terms of dictating what our lives and our futures of our generations yet to come are going to have to pay for some of the stuff that's going on.
So
we can vote people out. We have to go and start thinking about, looking at exactly not what the politicians are saying necessarily, but what the consequences are of the actions that they're taking. We have the power, but we don't use it. We have common sense. Not many of us are being brought up in common sense anymore.
So, Paul,
and with consequential thinking.
I have a question for you.
It's important, that you appear all the time, put up with some of the stuff that we go after you on, And some of the other politicians, some of the other radio stations, it's great because we can hear it from them. Our newspapers, forget about it. Our TV news is outrageous. And so that, we have to start thinking of what does it mean to vote for people who control so much of our lives?
Yeah, I think it's actually way deeper than that, Doctor. Our opinions are influenced by what we're reading and what we're being offered. So to the degree that the internet gives me the opportunity to only see articles that are in line with my thinking, that's unhealthy. I never expose myself to a different perspective. And it leads me down a rabbit hole. And when I go to exercise my right to vote, that's going to be my influence. And there are some really smart, creative people out there influencing these super PACs that are helping me make that opinion.
So, Paul, I have a question for you, because I think you and I are sort of, in terms of the political spectrum, I think we are probably equidistant from the center on the opposite sides of the center in many respects, with dramatic exceptions. I think there are huge exceptions to what, to categorize you and your politics or to categorize me and my politics. There are exceptions. But what has happened to the parties, the two major parties, is they have become completely polarized. And so do you feel disaffected from folks that you were part and parcel with maybe over the last 25 years?
Definitely. I think that it's very hard to find the honesty in terms of our governments and in terms of the political parties, is that it becomes one of power and control, and it has harmed the people, it has broken up our communities, it has gone after big money and big tech, which has another great influence in terms of what's happening in our government and in our, regular lives, so that we have to start becoming more critical in our thinking. But yes, I'm very disappointed in, what has happened in terms of the politics and the political decisions that are being made.
So there were
much corruption that they get away with.
There were 100 prominent Republicans who just recently announced that if things don't change in the Republican Party, and when I say prominent Republicans, I mean true party leaders. They included former congressmen, former United States senators, former cabinet members, people who still, are engaged in a lot of high-powered positions. They said if things don't change in the Republican Party, they are actually going to break away. And we're hearing that within Congress as well. The fight that's going to take place today at some point over who is going to have the third highest position in the Republican Party in Congress is won over a battle of factions within the party. And what's interesting is that the person who's being thrown out is the person who's the more doctrinaire conservative, probably further to the right than the person who is being appointed in her place. And on the Democratic side, it's the same thing. The Democratic Socialists of America have become a significant part of Democratic Party politics in different parts of the country and different parts of the state, in particular in the outer boroughs of New York City. And it's almost as if the parties are pushing themselves so far to the edge. And I don't mind that, but they're also raising a level of intolerance for other points of view that kind of destroy the whole concept of the art of compromise and the big tent theory of politics. So you're either all in now, and if you're not all in as a Trump supporter, you're not all in. If you're not all in as a socialist, you're not all in, and that's troubling to me, because I think that says that politics, that organized politics should be revolutionary as opposed to evolutionary, and successful politics anywhere, successful governance anywhere has always been evolutionary. So it's a huge issue, but I think we're at the cusp of it. We're seeing things come to a head. It didn't happen overnight. No. I mean, we had the Tea Party and we had, the radical movement of the 60s. So there's historical mileposts to this thing, but it seems to be coming to a head at the same time on both sides of the equation right now.
Yeah, it contributes to the fact of big government, and we got to just realize that big government's not the answer. We're seeing the crisis, the horrors, and you see these little children at the border. When you see that, right now with the gas, what are people going to do if the attacks on our, which should have been dealt with for the last couple of administrations.
There, I think there is an argument for government intervention because
cut off that and our energy.
I know, Paul, but I think there is an argument for government intervention. Ransomware and cyber attacks are well known, and to the degree that the federal government hasn't organized and created a level of standard that can insulate us from ransomware is disturbing. This is a critical piece of infrastructure, and the idea that they're exposed in a way that we are almost a week into this crisis and they cannot spin up their servers again is more than disturbing. There needs to be an acknowledgement of the importance of this infrastructure, and they need to have a cloud backup someplace where if their servers were compromised locally, there's a plan where they can operate the system remotely. This is insanity, and I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement. I don't know what government agency to do it, but we have one in the town of Saugerties, not that we are entirely insulated, but insurance companies are aware of this. They offer insurance for these types of attacks. Where's our federal government acknowledging this, and this critical piece of infrastructure is left blowing in the wind, and now we have a gas crisis that's entirely man-made.
And then we are also being told that we are just so totally unprepared for attack on our electric grid.
Where's our federal government setting a standard that we need to look at this? There needs to be a federal standard we saw what happened in Texas. That should not happen. We are the greatest country on the planet, and the idea that we have 50 different energy grids is just disturbing and wrong.
I want to discuss Texas because Texas is and Paul, before we even get to that, I just want to say the two things that you just raised, children at the border and the cyber attacks on the gas pipeline, are two examples, I think, where conventional left-right thinking really doesn't apply. I think we have to look at it differently, as you often do when it comes to children. You take a humanitarian approach. You take a very in-depth approach to the issue, and you think about the outcomes. That's not necessarily left or right. When it comes to the means by which we transmit energy around the country, yeah, it's a free market system, but maybe there needs to be some intervention to better secure those systems or to develop redundancy. I think back to, and I don't know the speeches that led to this, but Dwight Eisenhower was largely responsible for the interstate highway system. And he proposed the interstate highway system not to get us to get around our cities and towns, but as a matter of national security. He said if we ever had to evacuate our cities, we couldn't. If we ever had to mobilize our country, we couldn't, because people had crowded the country so much in very specific places, and there was no means by which you could get from A to B in any way that was reasonable. So he developed a system. I think we're at that point now with the internet. The trust busters of the early part of the 20th century said, hey, listen, it's great that the railroads got us from border to border, but the railroads are too big, and the oil companies are too big, and we got to break them up. And I think the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world have done societally what they were supposed to do. They got us into this new technological era. But now it's time to take a good look at them. Maybe they have too much power. Maybe they have too much responsibility. And that's really what we're seeing. If somebody from Croatia can sneak in and somehow cause havoc on a gas pipeline, and that isn't what happened. They shut down the pipeline, so havoc could not occur. That says something about the narrowness of our systems and the lack of redundancy and the ease with which anyone can participate. But the Texas power issue, I watched with amazement at people talking about how Texas is a big failure, blah, 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 because power went out and it was, it rippled across the state and it took several days. Our last big power failure, which for some people lasted 2 weeks, was theoretically, I don't know how true it was, because a squirrel caused a problem in Ohio. Our grid is huge. Our grid is east of the Mississippi, and there's a west of the Mississippi, and there's a Texas. Those are the three grids in the country. And the east of the Mississippi grid was compromised by a very, very small issue. It probably wasn't just a squirrel, but the ripple effect that occurred. We need to take a hard look at our energy system. We need to take a hard look at our internet system, and we need to take a hard look at our just the means by which we relate to one another through all these different technologies. It's time for a third look, I think.
Yes, we need, we have monopoly laws supposedly, and when was the last time that those were put into, effect or used? And everybody depends on electricity. And so what are we going to do if it goes down, especially for the poor and the elderly and the young? We have to start focusing what's the best thing for the people and for our communities, and community in a small as well as a large sense. And then begin to focus on that and hold our government people responsible. That's who you are supposed to be working for, not the corporations, not for the big money that comes in and helps support you.
Paul, I hate to cut you off, but Paul, I hate to cut you off. We're under a minute. Thank you for your call. Have an awesome day.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I hate it when you cut Paul off, too. I love listening to him. I think he should have his own show.
I was actually trying to tell you 5 minutes ago because I knew he had more stuff to say, and I was like, but I didn't want to be mean.
No, the two of them were engaged, so I didn't. I
do wish Paul had his own show on here. I would tune in every single time.
Let's not jump to any conclusions.
I would love him to be on the air so I could call him and complain to him.
There you go. The shoes would be reversed.
There's a thought.
So Kevin Cahill, State Assemblyman, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Fred Costello. Thank you, Lawrence. And more importantly, thank you, listeners. We'll be right back here next Wednesday.
Kingston, New York. We're streaming through our website, WGHQ.com.